It's pretty rare that a movie or game or any media will come out and essentially define its own genre or event. Kinda like how when Jaws and Star Wars initially came out in the 70s, they were labeled as blockbusters because people would be forced to line up around the block to see them. Now it's kinda just tacked on to every movie that comes out. Ain't nobody lining up for Blockbuster Video these days.
Oh, you're too much!
It's just become kind of a buzzword that you throw on to attempt to classify something. Kinda like Dark Souls. Crash Bandicoot's the Dark Souls of 3D platforming. Cuphead's the Dark Souls of 2D platforming. Let it die, the goofy Dark Souls.
I know what I did, and it worked!
Hello, hi, yes, it's me, Austin, and today we're gonna be talking about some Dark Souls clones, of which there's a lot of them, but first, I want to talk to you guys about today's sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. If you're into mobile games at all, this is definitely one you're going to want to check out. Raid's a free game that hit the scene 3 months ago and already has nearly 10 million players worldwide. Why? Well, because it's actually pretty solid. I love playing RPGs on the go, and if you're a fan of traditional strategic turn-based gameplay and big story piece boss fights, this one's got a lot to offer. I'm not used to my mobile games having like quality 3D graphics. I mean, look at these champions. The heck? There's a plethora of heroes to grab, fuse, and make all big strong. The highly anticipated update just went live, so there's a ton of new stuff for everyone to experience. In fact, there's a lot of content for everyone that's gonna keep you busy. So if you wanna hop in on this, use my special link in the description to get a head start of 50,000 silver and a free epic champion that'll pop after 7 days. So go check it out, and a big thank you to Raid Shadow Legends for sponsoring this video. Now on with the show.
For those unfamiliar with Dark Souls watching this, say like my parents, let's run it down real quick. Demon's Souls was a weird as hell 3D action game that released on the PlayStation 3 back in 2009 by From Software. Those dudes were at the time most notorious for the Armored Core franchise, which, by the way, I'm still waiting for a new one. Demons got a lot of notoriety for having an ounce of difficulty back in a time where games were considerably easier than they are now. I think we can blame Halo for the whole regenerating health thing. Demon's Souls would be like, hey, what's up? You're fucking dead. And people loved that shit. I love that shit. But more importantly, Demons and the spiritual successors in Dark Souls, Bloodborne, and Sekiro presented the player with so much more than angry gamer moments on YouTube and griefing videos. Although those griefing videos are pretty great. You had an impressive amount of world building only discoverable through the player's efforts, a minimal amount of central narrative, a dark fantasy world, or even sometimes some horrifying Lovecraftian stuff. You had bosses that you trial and errored against for hours in an attempt to conquer. It's all fair, and as long as you're on your toes, you can do it. Hell, I did it. I beat Sekiro. It's not that hard, just block. So instead of throwing around words like Souls-like, Soulsborne, or I don't know, Soulkiro born, let's take a second to talk about some actual Dark Souls clones. No more of this freaking Fortune Street is the Sekiro of Mario Party of Bloodborne nonsense. I'm talking about games that were like, let's try the thing. But what is the thing? It's obvious. Just watch the video, you'll understand.
So I'm back from the shame attic to announce that yes, this is indeed not clickbait. Rejoice. We're about to talk about some Dark Souls clones, and to get started, let's talk about the most obvious one that I can think of.
Nowadays, there's a lot of Souls-likes, but once upon a time, if you wanted to try something really similar to Dark Souls, you had nothing for like a really long time. Then Lords of the Fallen was like, hey, what's up, baby? German developer Deck 13 wasn't really known for too much at the time, but I remember early previews of this game looking pretty slick, especially in the visual department, which was never FromSoft's strongest suit. Lords is like fine. It always felt like it played okay and had some decent moments, but it tried too hard to do the Souls thing, but with like 15% more jank. I did really like the experience point multiplier system and playing as an actual character, but that's it. Lords of the Fallen is kind of uninteresting to talk about, but I do think that Deck 13's follow-up, The Surge, is pretty cool. When it's not off making nibbly bits allegedly shrink, The Surge is this futuristic Souls-like that popped out of nowhere in 2017. I picked this thing up on a whim and it's not bad. Do you like Terminator? Are you afraid of the robots? Have you ever wanted to play a game where you are basically the mech crab suit from Aliens? Well, then The Surge might be for you. You play as Warren on his first day of work at a business called Creo. Totally not evil Google, who want to re-green the earth in this era of pollution by shooting missiles at it. Granted, they're like healing rockets, but still. Warren shows up with a dramatic wheelchair reveal, hoping to get a robotic exoskeleton. You actually pick your starting class by wheeling around from room to room, hearing explanations of the types of suits you can pick. It's neat. Then the robots are like, administer the sedative, but they totally did not administer the sedative, and then you're like... Then you wake up and everything's all post-apocalyptic. Like, how fast was that? Oh well, time to kill some robots. Oh yeah, Dark Souls clones. The Surge is a vast improvement over Deck 13's last effort, and it has a handful of really neat mechanics. You do the Dark Souls lock-on onto dudes, except you actually target individual body parts. If you want to go for the quick kill, you'll lock onto an unarmored part, but your main method of acquiring crafting materials and new weapons is by attacking armored parts. You'll run into a random dude that has a big scary looking weapon and you'll be like, I want it. So you break it off. This is mine now. It's like Gundam Breaker, except with scary looking Skynet robots who are like corpses. Instead of souls or blood as a currency, you have tech scrap. You'll use these at medbays to increase your core power, which allows you to slot better gear and implants to get big strong, but maybe not bravery. The heck is this? It wouldn't be a Souls clone without bosses. I hope you like even bigger robots. The Surge will have you dying a ton, though it's definitely more forgiving than the series it pulls from. Although, having a time limit to recover your dead body in order to keep the scraps you've gotten was an exciting and difficult feature. Not only do you have to get back to where you were, but you only got like 5 minutes, so good luck. Overall, The Surge is a pretty decent Souls-like, and one that I've had a lot of fun with. Its biggest flaw is honestly a lack of personality from playing it too straight. That and combat can be a bit finicky. Control inputs are super sensitive, so you'll accidentally press the button twice, but then you're locked in for 2 full hits, and you gotta be real gentle. I was really happy to see The Surge 2 be a thing when it was announced, so here's to hoping they make it even better. I know it's popular to put them in games these days, but hopefully they don't have the Terminator crossover. Stay away.
There's not too much to offer on the AAA front when it comes to Dark Souls clones, besides like the incredibly obvious ones like Neo and Surge. I think a lot of the more interesting stuff comes out of the indie corner, so let's do that.
Do you like Dark Souls? I'm gonna assume probably. Well, how about the roguelite? Or a roguelike? Whatever. What about the Souls-like roguelike? Not enough for ya? Okay, how about the 4-player co-op low-poly Souls-like roguelike? Yeah, buzzwords. Necropolis in concept is pretty sick. The developer, Harebrained Schemes, was at the time known for the Shadowrun Returns reboot, which was really solid and relatively popular with PC gamers when it released. So when I came across the Necropolis booth at PAX Prime and saw like 3 people playing a game that looked like Dark Souls together, I was like, oh hi, hello, yes, where do I money? So when it finally released in July of 2016, it was not well received at all. It turned me off from purchasing it at the time, but there were a ton of complaints Harebrained themselves acknowledged. Review bombs. So barely 3 months later, Harebrained released the Brutal Edition update, which added a decent amount of content like new enemies, new environments, and even a new playable character. The devs released this as part of a roadmap they posted on the Steam forums, a mini hotfix, and then promptly they sleep. Battletech time. So we're gonna talk a little bit about the Brutal Edition of Necropolis, whatever version I played like a week ago.
Someone said I should change it.
Yeah. Okay, that's good, yeah.
Turns out video games are fun with friends. In every situation. Single player for this one a little less so, but that's okay. Let's talk about it. So in Necropolis, you basically just attempt to escape from the dungeon overseen by an archmage called Abraxas, I think. The plot's very vague, just like everything else. When you create a character, you pick one of 2 character types and gender, but there's no telling what makes them different unless you get a second to play as them. That's fine, but this kind of thing is basically a motif for the entirety of of Necropolis. Want to make a potion? Sure. What does it do? Figure it out, dickhead. Time to equip a skill like you try to stomach bad food. Okay. Just like Final Fantasy XI, Necropolis is one of those games you want to play with a second monitor displaying the Wikipedia like the entire time. It's hard to even tell what things are. This little book stand here, this is how you get traits. You would never know. But beyond that, this game feels real good to play. Once you figure out some of the base stuff with the controls and you have a little party of friends getting into it, you're gonna have a good time. Considering this is a roguelike, if you die, you lose all of your progress and restart. Well, besides these little progress gems here. However, in co-op, you get to resurrect each other mid-run. You'll need it too, since Necropolis decided to keep friendly fire on. Yeah, just think about that.
Oh my god, sorry.
Roguelike, Dark Souls, tight corridors, friendly fire, shenanigans. But you end up trying to like communicate with each other to be like, all right, I don't have much stamina, you go in and I'll stay back. It's pretty cool. However, Necro does suffer from the same thing I mentioned with the Surge earlier, where your actions will queue, leading to moments where you do long animations like this twice. It's just unfortunate that the content here is really bare bones. Now, I know the developers updated it, but considering it's been 3 years since the last update with no word, Necropolis remains that little game that could have been. Unless you and a few friends pick it up on sale for like $5. But at the normal price of $30, that's a little steep. Maybe one day someone will make the definitive 4-player co-op Souls-like roguelike, but for now, this will have to do.
Oh, great. Bye.
I think it's about time we move away from the finished product and move on to the bottomless pit known as early access. After all, why pay full price for something when you can like boot up Steam, navigate the hundreds of hentai games, and pay for something that's totally not finished? Like this.
Now that all it takes is a handshake, $100, and an EXE to get a video game onto Steam, the platform's turned into this extremely difficult to navigate, almost unusable search engine filled with literal trash, and I love it. Now, most people out there who play normal video games are like, ew, how do I even find good video games anymore? But maybe the Epic Game Store has them. But the Epic Game Store doesn't have gems like weed. I guess people figured out how to throw Dark Souls into Unity now, so let's talk about a few early access clones. Only 2 specific ones though, because there's a lot. We got 2D clones, 3D clones, virtual reality clones, probably. Normally I wouldn't pick on this type of thing, but screw it. This here's Neverynth. I picked it because there's an anime girl.
I only listen to my dad, and my dad loves anime girls!
I launched this thing and thought it crashed right away, but no, it just freezes when you open it for like 10 seconds. Sick. Neverynth is another one of those Souls-like roguelikes. Turns out that's all the rage these days. Dark Souls, linear level progression, upgrades on death, anime bops, bam, very positive. We've talked about all kinds of clones at this point. Some of them are like games that are heavily inspired by something. Other clones are straight up in the same engine and feel identical to play. Looking at every Doom clone out there. Then you have something like Neverynth. No, this isn't just a modded Dark Souls, although, is this a recolor? Maybe not, but basically, Neverynth is like Rei Ayanami and the girl from Heavenly Sword got stuck in the lobby from Demon Souls, and also Tetris is here. It's not often you get to play something so blatant, but at the same time, Neverynth isn't bad. It's just clearly early access on an indie budget. At the moment, there's hardly any variety in the enemies from floor to floor, combat feels a little unbalanced, and equipable items are hard to make sense of. There are boss fights, but they're pretty one note. The mechanics aren't that challenging, but they have like 1,000,000 health. It's a big sponge. You get a currency called Crystal Energy as you go through the Neverynth. This is used for temporary upgrades for agility, strength, defense, and luck. Temporary because the numbers and stat boosting all disappear on death. Your main method of progression is by unlocking achievements like kill 10 of this thing, which is not gonna make you stronger so much as give you access to more tools. It's kind of like Dead Cells. There's also a crystal board, Tetris thing that lets you slot runes you find while dungeoning for a few passives and a totem that'll increase your base stats, but that's about it. And costumes. Gotta love costumes. For an early access game, Neverynth isn't bad, although maybe the very positive is a bit much considering the combat and UI needs a bit of work. Also, I'm like pretty sure that the menu sound effect is straight up from Grandia 2. Yo, Grandia 2, still real good.
Hey, anime in the video? Check!
Sticking with early access, we're gonna be moving on to something that hit the stores back in January. Bloody Spell, the early access Dark Souls clone with purchasable, downloadable content. Of sexy animal outfits, of course. If you're a player who pursues blood and is brave enough to challenge the limits, it will inspire your adrenaline and bring the best calm spear. Bloody Spell wants to be a tough-as-nails Souls-like action game, and it lets you know in the difficulty selection. Easy is recommended for players who have not touched the action game. Normal's for players who have been exposed to action games and Souls games. Souls games. Hard is for those who have been exposed to Ninja Gaiden and Yakuza? I didn't know you could just name drop. I feel like there's a pretty big gap between Ninja Gaiden and Yakuza. Maybe there's another game that should have had their name written here? I don't know. I'm not gonna say it. You gotta love this basic font and early access, y'all. The game, though, it's there's something neat going on here. You just gotta brush off a little layer of jank. 3D platforming with Soulsy physics, sure. Being able to take damage while locked in text with NPCs, yep. You wanna fucking see anything? No, sir. Unlike Neverwinth, there's a ton of cool looking gear you can find lying around, or stuff you can spend your currency on, which is just straight up called blood, by the way.
Yes, sir, that will be 2,000 blood.
What? There's several types of armor and weapon sets you can find lying around, though it did take a while to find something to cover my nasty feet. I was wearing like capri bloomers for the longest time, but at least I was lucky enough to find a huge blunt. The game's a pretty fun time though. Combat feels pretty fluid no matter which weapon you're using. It crosses a lot into Devil May Cry territory in terms of speed, which I guess makes sense considering they ripped off the Bloody Palace mode on the menu. Yep, that is just straight up Bloody Palace. When you slide into boss fights, battles are suddenly exhilarating. You have a teleport mechanic you use to approach enemies quickly, and if you end up doing it at the wrong time, you're gonna die. Normal enemies are just like zombies though. There's not much variety at the moment, but the roadmap plans to add a lot of areas. The beginning dungeon has multiple routes, and it seems like it's randomly generated, but everything else follows the Souls-like formula. You hold on to any abilities you unlocked and any items you have equipped. You can also unlock specific items by doing hidden mini games like this one, where you just throw a spear at a rat to unlock this. What's the DLC then? Why is the woman on the front page and main menu of this game the one being used for all of the promotion, not the main character? You play as this guy, but you can just equip this wig and... Oh, is this what you guys have been using the budget for? Seriously? Keep up the good work. Bloody Spell's pretty cool, even if it goes a little One-chan-bara at times. I think they got a long way to go and a lot of jank and Times New Roman font to fix, but it's on the right path. Though it did come out before Sekiro, and now that path is even longer. Or maybe this is better? I don't know.
So everything we've talked about in the video so far has been good or fine, you know? I think that's a testament to how good of a concept Dark Souls really is. But I want to change that. For our last game today, let's talk about a little digital title called Inferno Climber Reborn.
I bet you didn't know that Arc System Works made a Dark Souls clone. You can tell without this on the bottom too, just look at the logos. Arc Sys logos always have this extremely over-designed, ridiculous look to it. This one kind of looks similar to the Under Night In-Birth logo, actually. I think this is a remake, but Inferno Climber Reborn here gives us not one, but two logos in the same main menu. I'm stalling though, because oh boy. You begin with your standard character creation, and what is that? This is what I imagine Sir Daniel from Medieval would look like if he was alive. Ugh. You make your dude and slowly walk past a bunch of dead bodies toward what looks like a final boss arena, and sure enough, you did. Then Death asks if you want to wake up in heaven or hell, and it doesn't really make any sense, but apparently heaven is just dying to this giant dragon thing over and over, so let's go with hell.
That's right. Inferno Climber insinuates right off the bat that the act of normally playing the game isn't heaven, but hell. Although the launch icon might have been enough to tell you that.
Inferno Climber pulls a lot from Dark Souls, but controls like absolute shit by comparison. In every game I've spoken about in this episode, the character you control has momentum to their movement. There's a startup animation with weight to any slight jostling you might do. You have different walk speeds. Looking at Inferno for even 2 seconds is enough to see that this thing, you press But what if you take the mechanics and difficulty of Dark Souls and add in the durability system from Breath of the Wild? That kind of sucks. But what if you add that durability system to all of the food you have to eat? You need to fill up that tummy so you don't suddenly die, but the food you find can also die, and really fast too. Why does this literal walking corpse need to be fed? You're a zombie. When you die, which by the way you will, you then briefly control death and have to pick a new character. If anyone out there has played Let It Die, there is a system where your playable characters would get kidnapped by other players. In Inferno Climber, if you die, your corpse run is done by another character entirely. So if your best dude dies in a high level area and you've not like worked on anybody else, you have to basically sacrifice someone else to grab them. If everyone dies, you have to permanently erase a character in order to get them a fresh start to try to get all the other characters again, so don't do that. Granted, anytime you level up, your XP goes to all of your bodies, characters, but check this out. Look at this PSPS menu system. My eyes immediately glazed over. This would be fine in like an MMO or a game from 20 years ago, but what is variance percentage? What does this mean? Is it the percentage chance that you'll Naruto run? Is it your enemy's chance to Naruto run? Inferno Climber is not only infuriating in concept, but has close to no conveyance of what you're supposed to do. I get that like Dark Souls is like, hey, figure it out. But Inferno Climber is like, figure out the one and only specific thing you have to do, and we're not gonna tell you shit. I spent so much time trying to understand the significance of these trials you do, from the note that I got in the jungle that just said, I learned how to use this bow and arrow in a basement somewhere, and then I couldn't for the life of me figure out where to go, but once I did, let me show you. Did you see it? See that tiny little switch blurred out in the distance? I was stuck here for like an hour. It's the most embarrassed I've ever been. I kept going for a little bit before rage quitting while corpse running over and over. In any other Souls-like, you feel like you can slowly push your way through the combat as you learn more and more, but in Inferno Climber, you get jostled around like a rag doll and swarmed and just put into the ground. Like, oh, sick. This game doesn't feel real to me. Your food rots too fast, your weapons break too fast, and also everything's just this nasty brown. And somehow Arc System Works made this? The guy's known for maximum style and color, yet somehow half of this game looks like a grimdark version of Choco Mountain from Mario Kart 64. Steer clear of this one if you can. Don't be like me. Swear to me, it's a bad game.
Well, that's it for today. People have been making a meme out of the fact that I always promise a new video as a sequel to whatever one I'm working on. So I'm not going to do that today. I'm very sensitive. Guys, I had to move into the attic. The gamers are coming. I tried to get into Area 51, and all that was there was a bunch of angry Dark Souls fans, unfortunately. So this is where I live now. I'm barricaded up. I hope everything's going to be okay. I think I'm gonna be safe, but you know, we'll see. I guess while I'm here, we should thank a couple of people. I don't know if I'm gonna make it out, but special Patreon shout out to Alfredo Ariano, Christopher Olivia, Chris Shelton, Donald Dowdy, David Molnar, Eli Shane Stauffenecker, Flaming Fighter, Irrational, Jay Roos, James Rory, Jacoby Fitzpatrick, Josh Garbage Lord, Legend Gary, Nitron? It's not Nitron, is it? Plasma Phoenix, Ronnie Vile, Shintaro, Superfly 1787, and Vlad Lust. I think we're gonna be okay. The Dark Souls fans are very upset. Subscribe. I do what I want, bitch.